All right, now we'll start the meeting. Call to order. We'll have the invocation. Dearest Lord, we have Coast RTA board and employees that may be available. We are here to review the current activities and year-to-date activities and probably prior year activities. Help us to make good decisions that will benefit Coast and our stockholders and our riders. Amen. And now let us make a moment of silence for former board member Gary Loftus' beloved wife Kay, who passed away on Monday, February 29, 2016. Okay. Now we'll have a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we'll have a roll call.
Catherine D'Angelo.
Here.
Sid Blackwelder.
Here.
Darryl Eichhoff.
Here.
Wilbur James. Lily Jean Johnson.
Here.
Marvin King.
Here.
Joseph Lazara.
Here.
Chuck Otwell.
Here.
Rob Sheehan.
Yes, ma'am.
Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Ivory Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, do we have any visitors?
Yes, I would like to ask, it doesn't look like we have anyone else on the phone besides our board members, but if so, please speak up now and let us know that you're on the line. Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I don't think we have any visitors.
Okay, no visitors, so no public comment. There's no employee recognition at this time. Approval of the minutes,
I so move.
second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
okay. The minutes are accepted. No comments from anybody, I take it? No comment, okay. Approval of the minutes is taking place. Thank you. All right, service report committee, service committee report, nothing to report at this time. TAC committee report, nothing to report at this time.
We have some questions for those that maybe we should deal with in the context of the manager's report.
Sure.
They're
Yeah,
just-
You
they would-
you can do it now, but I just was gonna say that we need to have those two committees meet next week on their regularly scheduled day, which is Wednesday, the 9th.
Yeah, I'll be on travel. so,
Okay.
For the next 2 weeks. Unless it was early Monday, it's not kind of unavoidable, but that's all right.
Well, what we're planning on doing is just kind of going through the service changes, and I was going to give a rundown on public involvement.
Right.
And there was something else unpacked that,
Well, public involvement and also what input, if any, have we gotten out or back on the citizen focus group?
the SAC, or whatever we're calling it, the SAG.
Yeah.
We have at least 6 applications. So I thought we might get those to, I guess you would just do it by the committee, or the committee plus Mr. Silverman maybe.
Yeah.
And we'll get those out to you this week, and we can start reviewing them. And
I'll be on internet access and I can call in
Okay,
for that
good.
meeting on Wednesday.
what would be a good convenient time? I know Miss Lily Jean likes to do the 9 o'clock slot. But
That's fine. I'm gonna be in Buffalo, so I'm in the same time zone. I'll just call
Okay,
it.
so 9 and 10:15, is that okay with you, Ms. Johnson?
What is that date again?
Next Wednesday, the 9th, at 9 a.m. for Service Committee,
That's good for me.
okay?
9 o'clock.
And then we'll do PAC at 10:15.
Can we just call you on your cell, Dr. Sheehan?
Pardon?
Can
Yeah.
we just call you on
Yeah.
your cell? That
We
way I
all-
can dial it in here.
The other question that we had, and Bernie's got those materials, is have we really made the timeline progress that we were hoping for on the demand response, the disability service, putting those materials together? Because we had a September 28th deadline.
February 28th.
Or February 28th, I'm sorry, deadline for some of that materials.
Yeah, on the data.
Yeah.
We have the data, and I think I can get something out to you all for the meeting.
Oh, that would be great.
So we can, at least show you where things are. I know how many people, how many individuals made the trips for each week, each month.
Yeah.
Those types of stats, so we can talk about that and kind of what we see.
Well, and at some point, I think, Bernie, do you have that timeline?
Yeah.
On what?
This is,
On the service minute?
no, this is the Paratransit Information Program.
And what was going to be accomplished by February 28th?
There was two things. One was February 15th, and that was data collected information used in presentation.
We're gonna have some interviews.
Yes, that's where I was headed to.
Those have not occurred yet, but as soon as Michelle gets back into town, we'll get those scheduled.
The interviews were the 28th.
And pictures,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I haven't read this since last week, so I can't remember from one day to the next, really.
Yeah, we'll get her going on that as soon as she gets back.
Okay.
So we're a little bit behind.
Okay. Next is Finance Committee report.
Okay, we met on February the 17th. We went over the 3 months of financials. Everything looked fine. We also looked at some of the budget numbers with regard to percentages. We're on track. Everything was approved and went very smoothly. I have reviewed the visa charges and the 3 check registers. They should have been sent to the finance committee members.
They were, we got them.
Pardon?
We got them.
We got them.
Okay, great. And we should get those on a timely basis going forward on each month, so we have them for our meetings, for the finance committee.
Yeah, we got it set up.
And then,
I'm sorry.
and then we need to post those on the website.
This is Rob, Chuck, we had some discussion that maybe the visa you don't want to post, given the amount of crossing out that you're gonna have to do of your card number and that sort of thing. So I don't know how that was resolved, but I think there was some openness, at least from a couple of members, to not post the credit card statements.
That's correct. We were just gonna.
Okay, that's, I was just throwing it out there, in the, avenue of transparency, basically.
It's
Did
gonna
that
be
email,
on
did that
the
email
check
go this
register.
morning with the next?
It really doesn't make any difference one way or the other to me.
Right. And just to let you know, Mr. Otwell, we sent out the next batch, the February 15th cutoff date for the credit card and the check register earlier today. And that went to the entire finance committee.
Yes, I know, yes, I have that email.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have one other question about the Finance Committee, and I don't have my notes, I'm all mixed up because of the week thing, but some things that the auditor talked about. And one of the things was, that we talked about, was getting all this information together on the computer program Sage. Are we working on that? Are we getting ahead of that?
Oh, absolutely. I've been training the last 2 months. We've got most of the balance sheet accounts all reconciled and supported with a single lead sheet with all Sage information behind it. So they're really getting in tune and up to speed in terms of everything we do is minimal Excel backed up by direct system reports. So it's becoming much more push button, and they really understand it too. So we're not having all these reconciling items and losing our place and having to go back, making fixes to fixes. That's all in the past now. So we're doing pretty well with that as well.
And we're working on like getting the taxes on there and all the things that this program can do, you know.
Yeah, it's, we do the payroll with it, I mean, it's a very good program. And
Yeah.
Where do we stand with the time clock? We're still dealing with,
We're having
We have some
some
employees.
issues where we're testing two maintenance employees. And it's not so much that the system doesn't work, but they're trying to tailor it so that the maintenance manager gets the information. He'd like to see both job costing information and vehicle information, that sort of thing. So they're kind of doing a trial run with two maintenance employees on that system. I personally haven't taken it and trying to weave it into or import it into the payroll system directly as far as hours worked and departments and that sort of thing. So that'll be the next phase. It's going a little slower, I guess you'd say, than what we anticipated, but it's marching along.
Yeah, marching along is what we need.
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah.
I would caution you that if you're doing too much modification, the next upgrade to the software means it always has to be redone again. So you know, I wouldn't go too far down that road of making the system twist.
yeah. I think we're less concerned about the interface with Sage than we are with getting reports out of it that help us on the operating
Okay.
side.
Yeah.
And that's really where the test is making sure that Tom Berta's getting the information, you know, by vehicle or whatever he wants back there.
Are you also putting in, I will use the wrong term, I'm sure, the non-reimbursable dollars that you said you were gonna add an extra code to so that they appear in the proper line, but they then get backed out?
Yes, that's being done. We had already built up, unfortunately, 4 or 5 months of expenses that are primarily travel
It's about
expenses.
$70,000.
Yeah, into a more or less a suspense expense account.
Yeah.
Steve, you know, the intern who's now, I guess, part-time status, Steve is.
Intern, go ahead.
Yeah, the
We have
intern.
a lot of those.
He has been tasked with going back, line item by line item, and
Reloading.
reassigning those things, but we don't want to do a two-step shuffle if we don't have to. So he's gonna look at it, and if it should be an allowable expense, he's gonna move it directly there instead of putting it to the department and then jumping it into an allowable.
Will that be part of February close?
He's done, he's basically done, he has a handful of items, and yeah, it should be part of
Okay,
that.
So we should have it squared away for
Okay.
close.
Yeah, there might be a handful of items in that suspense account, yeah, but it'll be significantly reduced from that 72,000. So,
Ron, is there any way we can download all the credit card transactions from the merchant bank instead of having to deal with all this paper and load that stuff into a database? Will Sage handle that?
I don't think so, I think
For
we
the
still
credit
have to
cards?
massage it, I mean, we're gonna have to go through and code it. In other words, we're still gonna have to get the statements and the receipts and other documentation for it and code those invoices into Sage. It won't be a direct interface process, I can't see that happening.
But, and we're only paying, you know, we're only sending one check. So the.
Right, I realize that. What I'm talking about is just the detailed transactions. What most people are doing now is they have an interface with the merchant bank, and those come in as they go.
Yeah,
And you can still get the paper copies if you want them. But that way you've got your charges just like this instead of waiting until the end of the month.
Oh, we don't have to wait till the
We
end of the
do
month,
that.
we can go online and get them, yeah,
But
there's,
you
yeah.
don't want, but you can't download it and
I don't know
well,
if
they're
they
being
want to at
coded
this
by the
point.
receipt. So
Yeah.
they're being coded in real time, and we get, like we just had this,
Yeah.
you know, all these folks going down to the State Transit Association, all those are, they'll be in by the end of the week, so all of those transactions are in, and so we're really just using the statement as a reconciliation.
And I really already have them. I go in on the County National Bank and go in and print, you know, what we have so far and check off the receipts as I'm doing expense reports, so you don't have to handle them.
But it's a good
Several
point,
times.
and we're still building the foundation, if you will, and making this thing Sage-based, so it's still,
it may not even have that capability, I don't
We were
know.
just,
Yeah,
we were
no,
just
it-
talking about this today. The bigger issue is getting our PO system electronic. I mean, I'm still buying
Oh, really?
POs at triplicate. So, you know, it's that whole issue of that's number 490 on the
Yeah.
list of.
and Sage does have a very good accounts
Huh?
payable.
It's not on workflow, it's not
Not
digitized?
yet. It's getting there. Like I said, we're trying to get into the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a slow pull.
How about our shortfall to go to the 15, for this 15-month year? Where are we with that?
That's that's still at 21,000. I've got to formulate my request for the county to get the money, and as I wrote in my report, the city is amenable to an additional 30,000 for capital expenses, basically. But then they took that a step further and asked us to kind of make some improvements at the downtown transit center and utilize that bathroom. So that's going to turn into sort of a mid-sized project. And that will be a much nicer place to wait for the bus until we get something permanent.
We have a customer service rep there too?
I'm hoping,
We'll move one of these or a new hire?
yeah, we move one.
Can you tell us, in your report, you had said that some of that is then transferable to a next project. I'm having trouble visualizing a toilet being picked up and moved, so I don't know what.
We wouldn't do that, you're right. I mean, I want to make some improvements to that, but they'll be there for the farmer's market and whomever in the
The restroom
future.
is already there.
The
Okay.
restroom's already there, I just want to make some improvements to it.
So you want it just to be cleaner and airier and more likely to draw
And
people
have a
there
sink. It needs
instead
a
of the
sink.
city hall?
It's just
Yeah.
2 commodes and,
A sink, you mean
There's-
you think they're gonna wash their hands?
well,
They'll be taking a bath.
yes, we definitely have those issues, which is why we want to man that area. But really, the only thing that's not going to be usable is the concrete pad. Everything else we could pick up and take somewhere else with us. And that was the point I was trying to make, as far as the stop is concerned. And we can reuse those 3 shelters that are there now and put them somewhere else. So,
Is that farmer's market open
I think it opens in April.
now? Oh, in
It's just
April.
half a
Yeah.
year.
And it's not every day, is it?
It's 3 days a week, maybe 3, 4.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
No, it's not Friday, it's Thursday, Saturday.
when-
Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, I forget.
Something like that.
It might be Friday, I'm not sure.
So, and we haven't gotten all the details. We gotta try to come up with a plan for it and submit that to the city. But the city was willing to put more money towards it
So the
as a
original,
result of that.
the original question then, if you're 26,000 short going into the 15-month, do you have a projected window where you think you'll get that wiped?
Well, I guess technically I don't need to. I mean, we can borrow 21,000 from 2017 and make things work. I still have a few projects that don't have local match associated with them, which is why I'm formulating these small requests kind of across the board
Yeah.
in order to get that to happen. So, and I'll have some more details in the manager's report to talk about based on discussions at the transit conference. I got a few curveballs thrown at me that we need to address. So I can give you more on that then.
Is Myrtle Beach increasing their contribution more than we're increasing service? Are they giving us more money, or are they just giving us the same amount per bus or per mile or per passenger?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same amount. I haven't really gone through the calculations of whether or not they're getting more service. I mean, I guess, basically, if you compare, I mean, we've changed so much, so many times every year that it's really hard to kind of get a handle on that. But I would venture a guess that going till 8 p.m. all year round is maybe a little bit more service versus doing the till 11 p.m. last summer
For 3 months.
for 3 months. So, I mean, it's probably a little bit more service overall. Because those really relate to the Myrtle Beach based routes. You know, I'm not really making any changes to 16 or 16X, which go to Georgetown. They're still running basically the same. The last Georgetown bus doesn't get back to the shop until 9 o'clock now, even though service technically ends at 6. So, because it's finishing down there at 7:30 and has to come all the way back. So a little before 8:30 time frame. So that won't change in the new service. So no, my conversation with Myrtle Beach was, you know, I'm trying to, as you all have heard ad nauseum, is we're just trying to get the system set for a while so we can focus on capital investments in the system, and that's what the additional 30,000 is for. And they said, okay, that sounds really good. And then John Peterson was even you know, trying to figure out ways to pay the extra 30,000 in the meeting, so I took that as a good sign.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they said, we want to do something about across the street, and they're willing to put more money into it, so I need to give them another request. I need to edit my request with whatever we're gonna do there.
Yeah, because we don't want that 30,000 go solely to those bathrooms and we're not any further ahead. So that's the
Right.
concern, that we don't want that to eat up the additional funding that we may get.
But it'd still be a good deal if that's.
Oh, yeah,
that's not
it'd be
the
a
way
nice
we'd like to
shelter
work,
if we
but-
combined the two, you know, upgraded that bathroom.
It should reduce the maintenance costs in City Hall at,
Yeah.
at a minimum.
Well, and
Pretty
they're
convenient for
they're
us.
willing to help me, you know, maintain them, and like they're doing now with the current bus stop. I think they're willing to at least talk about, you know, how they can help us keep it clean and maintained and that thing. They already have video surveillance out there, so we, you know, we might place one more camera. You know, we've got prices on a larger shelters that could go out there. I think they can manage the construction, any construction out there, they'll manage that for us, which I think is important. We want to put benches out there that have individual seat railings, so you can't lay down on them, stuff like that, because that's an issue. And the police have been great down there, they really are ushering a lot of our problems away on a regular basis, so it's a pretty good relationship right now.
Are those bathrooms gonna be heated and all that?
To be determined. I really don't know. I haven't. I mean, I have a contact at the city on someone that I can go and look at them and get all that information and see what kind of upgrades. But I would like them to be.
Yeah, they should be, because
Yeah.
otherwise cold weather,
I mean, it has
the pipes will
power.
freeze or-
It has power, so
You can always heat the seats.
I don't know if they're heated, but I've been in them
They
and
sell
they need some
Heated
work.
seats.
Yeah.
You would not, it's not a place that you would
No,
really
I'm-
like to go
But
to.
it should be heated.
You don't wanna make it too comfortable.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there is.
We don't wanna
something
freeze the
in there.
pipes. that's-
No, we don't want to make it comfortable, too comfortable in that way, but we want our customers to have.
I'm also not really interested in getting into the bathroom
You
business.
can
Yeah,
get
really?
heated hard seats instead of heated soft seats, so that way you find a better balance.
Well,
Yeah.
like in Africa, there's no seats at all.
Nor in China.
You just stand.
That's an idea.
So my daughter said.
All right,
Yeah.
Chuck,
So I didn't really have anything to add to the January report, unless somebody has any questions.
Unless you brought her own toilet.
Chuck, your committee is degenerating.
It's this end of the table with Katie.
Okay. We're
Okay.
finished with the finance and general manager's report, and this is completed now, you're saying?
Oh no, I got a few other things I want to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
Chuck, were you through?
Yes, basically, the only other question I really had, is not, well, it's from the finance committee, was how is your internal control, corporate, the CPA firm?
Yeah, they are moving forward, and are currently writing their report, so we should have that, I would imagine sometime next week.
Yeah, they were gonna do 4 days of field work and they cut it back to 2. They thought it was sufficient, so we're taking that as a good sign. But they are in the process of writing their report now.
Is it a fixed cost contract, or will this reduce their cost?
It's just one of those things where we're gonna, I mean, they still have other things that they're gonna be doing for us as it relates to setting up for FMO. So, we'll spend the money, but we're just trying to get the biggest bang for our buck.
This is the same
I was
company?
gonna ask the same thing, Rob.
Yeah, we're both cheap is what it boils down to.
So that's a good segue into the manager's report. Those of you who are here, you'll see these green binders. We finally got the final copy of our audit. One has already been sent to the county. One has already been sent to the state. Just, I forgot to remind you, Ron, we need to send one to Myrtle Beach because of their contract with us. So we need to get one to Michael Price, and Lynette can
I'll send it
get you his
over.
address. Mr. Otwell, I'll bring you yours tonight at the public meeting.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, do you want me to send you one, or can you wait until next Wednesday?
I can wait until meeting.
And how about you, Mr. Keene, Dr. Keene? You want me to send you one? I'm sorry?
I can get that sometime.
Okay, good.
I think you might have that point.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna run through my email word for word. We already talked about the conversation with the city.
The one question that you're dangling in front of us is moving off of the beach boulevard, Ocean Boulevard, right?
Yes.
You getting some public pressure to stay on Ocean?
We have more than any other comment, negative comment, but that's the most popular one, but it's still less than a dozen. And I had one where they wrote us a letter. It was anonymous, but they left their return address, and I actually wrote them a letter and told them why we were doing it. And I think that the second biggest comment has been not going into the mall. And so we're hosting a meeting on a bus at the in the mall parking lot on Thursday. And we'll go talk to them, but I'm inclined to go ahead and go back into the mall just because we have the running time in order to do it.
This is the big mall?
The big Coastal Grand.
Yeah.
We may adjust our entry point and exit point based on drivers' thoughts and how things are going. But there's just too many good things coming out of this move off of Ocean Boulevard onto
Yeah.
Kings Highway in our setup that I really won't be able to do if we stay on Ocean Boulevard. And so,
Such as?
well, service to the airport becomes 15 minutes in each direction. Being able to serve the airport on Route 15 means that we can do some really good things with Route 10 on the neighborhood side, which the city is very happy about. We've gotten lots of kudos for being able to do that for those communities, those small neighborhoods. We've gotten lots of great comments on going to 8 o'clock. Everybody likes that. Can you go later? Type of thing.
The people who complained about the bus being on the 17, are they workers? Are they disabled people that
They're-
they can't work?
Well, there was one that had physical issues with the walk, but we actually talked to her, and she's not local. She's from West Virginia and spends quite a bit of time here. And we got her temporarily eligible for paratransit.
Oh, that's good.
So, you know,
But
those
the other
types
ones are
most of them are workers.
So they're in good condition, they can walk a couple blocks.
I got dinged for saying that a lot of those workers get off between 2 and 3 p.m. in a public setting. So that was why I wrote this one lady who was kind of giving me the
Yeah,
business
yeah.
about that. And I said, look, that was kind of taken out of context, and it was in response to ridership on the 16X and the 16, is that our 3 o'clock trip was doing a lot better than the 6 o'clock trip. And so I'm assuming that there's people who are getting off work at that earlier hour. And I said, sorry for the assumption, you know, maybe it was incorrect. But I laid out all those reasons that I was kind of running for: service to the airport and better service on the Route 10. And most importantly, what Kings Highway does for us is it puts those 15 north and 15 south on better on-time performance, which is going to help our entire system if those buses are getting to the pulse site, you know, at the city hall on time.
Do they have to pass over Chester Avenue?
They're, no, they
Just
never
the
really,
street, just
they
the
never
street.
really cross it,
Yeah.
but we are
Because
bypassing it.
Because at one time, that was
There's not
a
enough,
violent street.
yeah, and there's not enough connectivity. I mean, it doesn't run the whole length.
Yeah, it's
You
no,
have
it's
to
a
be
small-
doing,
No, that's because there was a church there that they moved out of town because of that.
And where are we
It's
headed
about
back?
an eighth of a mile. I'm just doing my.
I mean, I think down there at the bottom, you know, close to Spring Maid, it's probably pushing over a quarter mile
Okay.
to get from Ocean Boulevard over to Kings Highway. We looked at the possibility of running the route kind of across 21st or 27th, I think,
29th, I think you said.
or 27th or 29th.
21st and 29th.
But that doesn't really get you really any resorts besides Spring Maid.
Yeah.
So I'd like to run it, you know, I said, hopefully this information will at least, you know, get you to try it. The bus will be there on time, you know, that's gotta be good for something.
Yeah.
And how about on the north end, where are you gonna spin that back to the boulevard?
38th.
Oh, 38th, okay.
So that was the other point I made, it's like, we're not, one thing we got sideways on was people, you know, the article by Charles Perry said we're taking all the service off the
Yeah.
boulevard, and I almost wanna send a quick letter to the paper saying that's not accurate. it's 15 north and 15 south, we'll still have the entertainment shuttle during the summer, and all the Georgetown routes will be going up and down the
We'll get a
boulevard.
reprint though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on 38th Avenue, I used to walk that a lot during the summer, and I assume it's the residents have the city put up a no through traffic sign there. I don't know how.
I will make a point of talking to the city about that, making sure we're not, we tried to host a meeting up there, you know, but it was a neighborhood association on 38th, but closer to,
17 bypass.
yeah, but what's the other, closer to the Parkway.
Pine Lakes?
Grissom
Grissom
Parkway.
Parkway.
And so their neighborhood didn't really stretch even across, is there a little river road in there?
Yeah.
So it didn't, you know,
Well,
we
that
need
goes to
to,
Covenant Towers, right, yeah.
Back to 27 and 29 South, isn't there more stuff down there than Spring Main?
there,
Crown Reef is right.
Crown Reef is a big,
yeah, is it, I don't think it's as far south as 21st though, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's right there at
It's-
Damon's
it's
and
before
Spring
Damon's.
Main.
that's right by the
Before
restaurant, by
Damon's,
Damon's
right.
restaurant.
Yeah.
I'll go out and look at it again. It wasn't, those roads are not really main roads.
Mhm.
There's also issues with signalization on 17.
Yeah.
We do have one route, one of the 16 routes that goes down one of those roads, but I mean, I've been out there, it didn't really look great.
Well, you're never gonna make
Crown
everybody
Reef is
happy.
actually on the
Any
boulevard.
change. So, I mean, you
Right.
have to really do
I
what's
think the
best
best
for
thing to
most
do is
people.
just change.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. You know, we have another meeting in Murals Inlet tonight, and we'll,
Myrtles. I'm gonna call
Murals
it
Inlet,
murals. I
not
got
murals,
got
Murals
stuff.
Inlet, thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything, but.
Murals Inlet,
Myrtles.
in Erie County.
Right.
You've got,
Getting
the
there.
other one is that
Getting there.
French, what is that French thing?
Debadoo.
Oh, Debadoo, oh
So-
God.
So aside from putting them all back in there, I don't really see much in the way of changes.
You know, I'll be interested come March when the train supposedly is running, to see if the postal way cut through still works, because you'll be hitting the train twice, once on Gardner Lacey and once on.
Now, is it really coming past Conway? I know the train service starts, but isn't it mostly from Conway west?
You know, if it's the way it was a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
it goes right through there, right past the high school.
Yeah, but it's not going all the way to the beach.
I don't
Well, they
know.
will eventually, if they ever get that bridge fixed again.
I don't know that they have any clients yet.
That bridge has been up for
So they
30
may open it
years
up,
that I
but
know of.
I'll
Just be aware of it, when that happens, it's gonna be a safety issue.
That bridge
Or
will
I'll look
always be-
into,
The
what's
lights
going
are
on with
there,
freight rail.
the lights and the bars are there on both those roads, but it may be, you know, a 10-minute wait.
Right,
depending upon
yeah,
how-
because they're only getting 10 miles an hour on that thing.
Right.
Well, that's in the beginning.
We get input from our drivers, an open meeting or anonymous feedback from our drivers on these changes.
I went through them at the drivers meeting,
Well, with them
and we
face
didn't
to
really,
face. Well, they may-
most of them are pretty good. I haven't really heard anything too negative.
They're happy to be off the boulevard as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think that change, certainly all the drivers, like the 7 drivers don't want to wait around because they're always having trouble staying on schedule anyway, you know, on the Conway route. So I think, you know, getting a late start on that route is stressful at best.
And the entertainment bus in the summer, will that still go to 11 o'clock or no? It will?
Mhm.
So that's gonna be the only route?
That'll be 11 to 11, and what it will give us is when there'll be one getting off at 10 and another one getting off at 11, and they'll run a Route 7 route back to Conway.
Okay,
So we'll have a few extra trips at night to get back from the beach to Conway.
okay, I wasn't sure. of that.
Well, Sun News guy needs to write another article.
They'll take
Saying the good
they'll
stuff.
take the party people back.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's important, you know, we
Well,
want
the
those.
people
took
are working
Charles.
there
Right.
too.
How many buses are on that entertainment?
2
Two?
trolleys.
Trolleys.
So we got it's gonna be $28,000 a piece for 2 of them to upgrade the ACs, so we're in the process of doing that. We've gotten, go ahead from DART to buy an engine. 35,000 is a brand new Detroit diesel engine, which will be our spare,
Dart.
from DART.
Why do we need anything from
How does it
Dart?
get here?
They drop ship it, so that doesn't include
fun.
the shipping charges. And then one of the buses we got that came back, we're not sure when it happened. It rides a little low. It was riding a little low, and the cradle that holds the engine and the transmission in there and up was damaged pretty heavily. So this engine package we're getting has the cradle coming with it.
You can swap out the cradle for the
So
one you have.
and we could swap out, both things.
And DART, how is DART involved in the new one?
DART has 60 of these vehicles left, so and they had well over 80, and so they're thinning their inventory out. And the nice thing is this engine was built or was paid for with all local funds. So this brand new engine's only going to cost me 20% of $35,000, which is cheaper than buying a used remanufactured engine
Right.
with all local funds.
The engine costs $35,000?
But what it will allow us,
What are buses running nowadays? I mean, they used to be
oh,
385,
420
420 now, so they've gone up.
for, clean diesel,
Right.
might be 450 for a
Are we still
CNG.
buying diesel
I
buses?
think so. I think these two that we'll buy this year will be diesel.
Uh-huh.
I don't really have, we don't really have any other alternatives. I mean, a CNG needs a fueling
Yeah,
site.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
cleaner, isn't it?
And, I mean, it's possible to do electric, at some point, a bus, but, a battery bus.
You gotta plug that all in.
But I just wanted the engine will allow us to do true preventive maintenance. We have an engine go, we don't know what's wrong with it, we can stick a new engine in there, pull the old one out, and work at it on the side and keep that bus running. So that's the whole point to having an extra engine. And we have an extra transmission too for the same reason. So it's a true preventive maintenance program for what we now have constitutes the bulk of our fleet, these
But
10
pulling those
buses.
engines out can't be done here, can it? Oh, so
Do it here.
you have that pulley in the whole.
Well, we're using a forklift, but yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that begs another question in my mind. Once you find a good thing, why don't you buy two of them if they're available? I mean, I could easily imagine a situation where one goes down and then the other one goes
Yeah.
down, and all of your, two would be a better insurance than one, at least on the
Right.
engine
Well,
side.
I guess one reason is we don't get reimbursement for it until we put it into a vehicle.
Oh,
So I don't wanna float 70,000 in local funds. So I'm only
Yeah.
floating 35, and this first one we'll use pretty quickly.
probably worth a good, it's probably worth the
Yeah.
investment though. I mean,
I wonder if people who finance us really realize all the rules and regulations that we go through, really.
There's a few. There are a few
Yeah,
of them.
I mean, every time you turn around, you can't do this because of that.
He's blown his
You
mind on several,
I
yeah,
know.
oh, you can't do that, Ron, because of this, and this.
can't- But I
you know?
mean, the people who, like the county and different municipalities, I don't think they have any idea.
It's
well, I just, if you could get a second one, you would be wise, even if you are floating some of that. Because if the DART buses, if those engines are at fairly affordable rates, that's not gonna happen again in your lifetime with these kinds of
Well, and
buses.
these engines are out of out of production.
That's
They
what
don't
I'm
make them
thinking,
anymore.
yeah.
I'll think about it. I think that, if you look at what DART was doing with 80 of them and only having 2 in stock, it's,
Yeah.
and plus we gotta store it somewhere, so that would be another issue, is, where are we putting this thing?
In your office.
Yeah,
I may have missed
put it under the
something.
table.
I may have missed something. This is a DART bus engine that we're getting. Are we getting it from DART?
Mhm. I've been begging the maintenance guy over there to sell me one, so he finally found one. And they may have another one, so I'll think about it.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot of money, it's an awful lot of cash flow kind of things, but, those buses are moving forward, and, I think I don't know that we've gotten any of them on the road quite yet, but we're waiting for fare boxes and,
We still don't have them on the road.
one or two of them might be on the road. The other part of this equation is disposing of vehicles. We have 4 on Gov Deals right now as we speak. We'll have 5 more sometime in March on Gov Deals going out the door.
These are all out of.
They're all, well, 2 actually,
Interest in any of them.
that's not accurate. 2 of them are buses that were involved in accidents. So we still, they don't have, one of them still had federal equity in it, but it was part of my 120,000 in the budget
Every month?
that we're gonna resolve with FTA
Just,
through the
oh, we're
grant.
up
It was like 21,000 or something left on it.
And is the other bus, is that
How
resolved yet, or
often do you
that's still?
put the-
It's not resolved yet, but we have a plan for resolution that FTA is on board with.
Okay.
So that will happen, now that Trams is back open, we can start rolling on those grants. And they're not approving it yet, but we've gotta get those grants actually in and talk with staff over there in Atlanta.
Have they,
There's been some turnover over there, which concerns me, but
have they scheduled or talked about a timeline for the FMO?
I talked to Dr. Taylor, last Thursday and said, hey, I still need it, and she promised to get back to me on how that was going. She didn't know how their procurement process was going with getting those consultants on board to do the FMOs.
Well, that may be something you want to talk about at transportation.
Yes, keep them up to speed on it. I mean, they're full aware that it's out of my control.
Yeah, no, I get it,
So-
just a reminder that,
Do you have an update on AVL? It was on your agenda there.
Yeah, AVL is on the street. We have people knocking our door down to get a copy of that RFP, so I'm expecting quite a few proposals. They're due on March 11th. The evaluation is maybe a third price, a third qualifications, and then a third on what we can do for add-ons in the future. So we want, good architectures that we can add some other things on, like adding automatic passenger counters at some point, adding on voice communications. So we could do away with our Verizon push-to-talk phones and actually have a tablet on board that you can talk through, hands-free type of thing. So there's lots of widgets that we can add to this system once we get the beginnings of it in place.
And again, is the RFP for all the buses or for just the fixed route buses? I know we talked about only making it available visually.
We're planning on putting them on all our equipment.
Okay.
But obviously we won't send out where our paratransit vans are, but yeah, we'll put them on there.
so if the RFP is due on the 11th, like what's a guesstimate of when they would be, when the system would roll out?
I would like to have the app up and running sometime midsummer. I really would have been great to do it April 1st, but that's just not in the cards. So, July, first part of August timeframe would be awesome. And I think we can do it with the right contractor, so hopefully we can make that happen.
Be more optimistic than that, please. Do one.
Let's get them on board and
My
then say,
thought would be
hey,
more pessimistic, because I rather, I think, we've overpromised in the past, and I think that's a dangerous area to walk through,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see them and if they have any issues with the different vehicles. They all have different electrical systems in them, and Tom A has done a really good job with getting the fare boxes on all of them and making sure that we're integrating into the electrical system properly. So he at least has some good working knowledge of those and can help the consultant with that. I had two other ads to this, beyond my email. I just want to let you all know about some of the results from the rodeo this past Saturday. We did not place in the 40-foot or the 35-foot category, but we finished first and second in the cutaway category. Timothy Patrick won it and has a free ride to the National Rodeo in Portland in May.
Those are the demand response buses?
Yeah, the demand response buses. And then Arian Nicola finished in second in that competition, so we kind of swept the top two honors there. And the really surprising thing was our maintenance crew had the top score on the written test and finished second overall.
Oh my goodness.
So they were really proud of it. That was kind of really fun to watch them to sort of soak all that in, and I was really proud of them, so that was pretty cool.
They haven't gotten strokes like that either. I mean, that's...
Well,
It's a turnaround for
and
them.
really speaks to Tom
Okay.
Berta. He's doing a fantastic job back there, so it's definitely looking up from that regard.
Yeah, right.
Is there some way that we could Is there some way that we can publicize that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
To
should,
give
that should
them
be,
Recognition?
that should be in the papers.
Yep, I think we could do that. Like at least
I
get
think,
a
I
public
think that would be
service
a
announcement out.
great idea.
Definitely.
That would be good for
They're
the
so
business
desperate
park
for
section and the Sundays
local
and
news.
Sundays.
That's right, because
so
all they
little.
have are killings.
That's right, there's so little
People
they're
found on the
publishing.
side of the road.
I mean, this beats, some of the dumb stuff you see there.
No, that's a good idea.
Someone who just opened a company making modified jewelry, front page story.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I had on my list is I just want to let you all know that we got comments back on our Title VI plan that were pretty substantive. Kevin is working on them right now. And as soon as we get it to where FTA wants it, I'll probably pass it around to everybody and take another quick look at it, let you know what we've changed.
Comments from FTA?
Comments from FTA.
Can you give us a high level?
Well, they, to be honest with you, I haven't really looked at them that much. Kevin's kind of working on them. They, there were no issues with the analysis. It was mostly making sure certain language was in there on different items. But I'll send you guys an email on kind of exactly what we're doing. And you know, you may or may not want to look at it again, but, and I'm still waiting on comments on the EEO plan from them, which I'm asking you all to approve today. But we'll see how that goes. Part of the turnover issues at FTA is that Carlos Gonzalez, who is their Title VI / DBE rep, went back to Federal Highway, so he's not there anymore, so we got a newbie there, and you're kind of caught between, you know, a fresh person who wants to
hold
go
on
by
just a
every
second.
single letter of the law, and, you know,
I'm in a
just
meeting
kinda
here. Let me
wants
get
every T
outside.
crossed and I dotted to, you know, who knows who they'll get in that spot.
One question on your email, your, you know, the 539 section, bus and bus facilities, talk going from discretionary to a formula. Talk about 133,000 starting in 16. That's not all new money, it's just now you can program it, or is
Well, it's money that we know we're gonna get,
it?
rather than having to apply for it
What
or
do we
get an
store-
additional amount from the state.
What have we historically received in that area? It's not guaranteed before, but all of this is obviously not new money. I just wonder, it's
Yeah.
good that you know what you're getting, but how much are we really talking about?
We have these two new grants that are coming from the state that were made possible because of the state's unobligated balance in 5339. That was one of the reasons why we got them. Now, what I actually get in those two grants, I don't think I'm getting any $5339. I think they want me to do all rural for those. But the fact that they had this money in 5339 made it possible to do this entire program. All the systems in the state got it. 5339 is, I'm trying to think of, it's just a small set aside from 5309, which is the big New Starts pot. That's for the huge projects, the 500 million to $1 billion size projects that the Chicagos and the Darts and all them get. These are for the mid-sized systems to help them with money for their, you know, for a facility and those types of things.
It says 16, so it started, it's
So
this current year.
it started as of last October 1st. It's
Okay.
available to us. It's been, I don't know that the allocations are complete. I think they're still waiting for the ink on the latest transportation authorization to drive before they kind of advertise all that. But, you know, the nice thing about a formula program is you can pool your money. So we could pool that for 3 years and actually afford a vehicle if we wanted to. It's not a lot, but, so,
You
it's there.
planned for it before you could, it was
Right.
discretionary before.
right.
Okay.
How about a new facility?
Well, if we're gonna get a new facility, we're probably gonna need some discretionary money for that, so we'll see if there's still gonna be, you know, other pots of money for discretionary funds that we can utilize. But I would suspect we need 2 to 4 million for that, so we wouldn't be able to save enough under 5339 in order to pull that off.
Anything later about site? Proposed site?
Well, only that we're gonna be putting the grant in I'm still got to officially request from FTA the fact that we spent the 70,000 before, used to use that as local match. They were warm to the idea of cranking up the project with the old procurement and using the same consultant and being able to hit the ground running. They were less warm about letting me do this on the local match. So that's one place where, you know, an extra 30,000 from the city would help us. That type of thing. There was something else that you triggered that I wanted to say that wasn't on my list. Oh, another thing, you know, I talked about curveballs that we got at the State Transit Association meeting. We got our allocations for FY17 5311, which is the rural portion that we get from the state. And last year it was 952,000, which we've actually had some struggles to actually spend it. We're a little light on our draws for that. But next year's is only like 762,000. And that is as a result of past operating statistics. So the rural system is, you know, a little bit undersized. It's going to get a little bit more undersized. So that I just need to work into the budget for FY17.
And that's because we didn't draw down the money we needed now?
It's not because we didn't draw. It's just because the operating statistics that we're attributing to the rural system is less than in years past.
Oh. Okay.
So this year's allocation is based on past
Right.
operating statistics, and that's a state rule. Our state money's not going down,
Then it'll take us another year before we get back to ground.
and that'll be, you know, that'll have to be a gradual growth, because I can't put enough into my rural system this year based on that funding amount in order to grow it that quickly. And so then the only other thing I heard at the conference, which is gonna be new for us, is there's new regulations that have been put out with this latest federal authorization on transportation that require safety plans, a new type of system safety plan that will have probably all of FY16, all of FY17 to develop. But, you know, there's just some new regs, and they're pushing down a lot of the regs that were formerly applying to much larger systems to small systems. So it's just something that will
Public
happen.
safety, vehicle safety, all of the above?
All of the above, security, the whole 9 yards. So that will be coming down the pike. Other than that, that concludes the manager's report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Going to approval of the resolutions.
Our single reading from Lynette. Tune up your voice.
Thank you. Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number February 2016-09, approval of updated EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity Program policy.
There's a motion on the floor.
Look at a number of February.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
So who,
All in favor?
I don't know that you got a,
Aye.
Right.
Like, we don't have
I
any.
have a question.
Well, let me finish up the
We
motion.
normally sign those at the meeting. Can Lynette just sign for the people that are on the phone?
You can sign it when you come in for the next committee meeting.
Okay.
yeah, we'll have it so that everybody here signs it, and then stragglers will sign later.
After that, Chuck, you could give Lynette your checkbook, and she'll just manage your signature from that point on.
Everybody else got a copy of it, I think.
Just give me your power of attorney and I'll take care of it for you.
Your power of attorney, your do not resurrect or do not revive
Did you vote
statement
on
as well.
resolutions yet?
Yeah, we just voted on the,
On the first one? Okay, good.
So all in favor, we said yes?
Yeah.
Okay, there's no nays,
You're two.
okay. The next, second resolution,
Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number February 2016-10, approval of computer access and intellectual property policy.
there's a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
Second.
We didn't put,
Discussion.
we didn't put the motion on.
get the motion yet.
We didn't get the motion.
And the other one?
No,
I
for this
so-
one.
We're on the second one, aren't
Right,
we?
we're on the
I so
second.
move.
Thank you.
I have a discussion.
I do
Wait a
too.
minute.
We need a second first, and then we
We need
do
a
discussion.
Okay,
I seconded it.
second, okay.
Here, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
small
in favor?
discussion.
Discussion, yes.
You know, we talk about being very significant value in all this information. Do we have or require to have offsite storage of our critical systems? This building burned down.
Our
We lose
critical-
everything.
We do have backup off-site,
Good.
yes,
That's good.
definitely.
Lastly, this is nitpicky, but on the very last line on the contract says, the executive director will approve access. Why did he approve, is that you? Every place else, the general manager slash, I just wonder why we inserted executive director all of a sudden. That just added confusion to me.
Tom Aaron's actually developed the policy, and I can certainly make that
I would
change,
suggest that.
definitely.
Is this a policy that was required by
What do we-
FTA,
we don't know.
changing policy?
Oh, you mean on the
It's
other
actually the
papers?
last,
Okay.
in the policy itself, it says all contractors and their associated employees must have the executive director or his or her designee approve of their access.
Is,
So that's not ours, it's any contractors or
outside access.
outside
Ah,
employees, that's not our access,
I'm with
that's
you.
outside.
Okay.
So where
So
did this
it's-
come from? Does this come from FTA or from the state? Do you know?
It was part of the state information that we had to send for the review.
We're
It
getting,
came from there.
we're getting inspected by the state beginning next week, March 15th, or the following week. They're coming out to do their review.
Mhm.
And so we delivered a stack. Actually, I guess it was mostly electronic, but
70-some files.
yeah, a lot of information to demo on February 15th. And we noticed going through this list of requested information, they asked for this policy. So we did our research, we figured out what the policy needed to say, and we've added it so that we can not be dinged on that one in the review. And that's really the only one.
So is this an annual SCDOT review?
3 year, it's a 3 year,
It's a 3-year.
It's every 3 years like the training.
Yep. going to state levels to the feds.
This is their preemptive strike before they go through training.
Is there anything else in addition to this policy as far as acceptable use by employees on the network?
Yes.
In
That
the
is,
employee
where is
handbook.
that? That's in the employee handbook.
Right.
I knew I read it, I just couldn't
Yeah,
remember
it's in the
where I
employee
read it.
handbook.
Yep. Did you want to talk about this one?
All in favor on this? Is there any further discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? There's none? It passes.
So you can only conduct legitimate business as opposed to
Illegitimate.
illegitimate.
Well,
Yep.
that'll be a change.
We'll get there.
We're working on it.
There a third one?
Go ahead.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, this one.
We'll,
Okay.
yeah,
Third reading?
we'll do it during the discussion.
Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority Resolution Number February 2016-11, authorization to file applications with the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, for Urbanized Area Formula Program 5307 funding.
There's a motion on the floor.
So moved. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Why are we doing this now? Isn't this usually an annual thing we do in January?
Well, it's, with trams, the new software, they actually changed the language in it. And, you'll remember that last year's, or last month's consent agenda included a 5311, but it did not include a 5307, which is the urbanized formula, so this is what this one's for. But this is now, it's even more automated process. And the nice thing about trams is that it looks a lot like the National Transit Database, what we're doing our reporting on. So things are a little bit more consistent. They are still working out a lot of bugs in it. But like I've been getting emails from the system saying, oh, you need to review this for comments from FTA, and they submitted comments on the EEO policy. I'm like, oh, great, I can do it, but there's no way to log in at that point. And so I called them up and I said, why am I getting all these emails? And they're like, you're getting emails? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh, we're developing our training, this is the regional office, we're developing our training course for the new trams, and we're using Waccamaw as an example. So I emailed them back and said, well, we love being made an example of.
Let us know.
Please increase our next grant
Yeah,
by 20% for
Right.
training
Right for
officers.
this.
So they're working on it, so we're good.
Have we
Okay,
voted?
No, we have,
All in
We
favor
did.
of the?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Any,
aye.
any nays?
That sounds like he's in the
Motion
back of
passes.
the room.
Yeah, Lynette, you can have these two.
Okay,
Okay,
that
thank you.
concludes the three
You know, the
resolutions.
Board of Trustees at university used to have a board member who would go to the bathroom during the meetings, calling from home, and carry the telephone into the John.
We had that one too.
We had that happen from San Francisco a couple of
Yeah.
years
He was
ago.
flushing the toilet.
Yep.
Are we gonna require executive session?
Well, I did have something I wanted to talk to you all about, in executive session, but I don't,
We can try to take that.
Can I have a 2-minute break, please?
well, yeah, but I'm a little hesitant about doing it on the phone.
Oh,
So if the board members are okay with hanging out, I mean, I guess we have a way of saying that nobody else is on there, so maybe it's no big deal.
Yep, you're not listening.
So yes, let's, if we need a break, we can do that,
We'll take
but then
a
I need,
5-minute break.
I need a 5 to 10 minute
We get
executive session.
And I'll
Turn off
have Candace come from that off too.
Motion to come out of executive session.
I move we come out of executive session.
Second. Motion been accepted.
Any discussion?
No discussion took place while we were in executive session.
No votes, no action.
No vote, no action.
Was the purpose for personnel issues or
Legal.
contractual?
Legal issues.
Okay.
Legal issue.
I just need that.
Okay.
Okay, we need a vote to come out? I'm in favor of coming
All in
out.
favor?
Aye.
No nays?
Are we done?
So now we need a motion for adjournment.
Motion we adjourn?
Is there any
got a
old
motion?
business?
Okay, it's got
Put
open.
that in no business, new business. Any announcement? There being no further business, we have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, everyone.